Hi, I'm Lee. Welcome to the channel. I hope you're having a lovely day. I'm a short, overweight, middle-aged white dude. I've got thinning brown hair, black glasses, I'm wearing a grey t-shirt, and I'm sitting in an office with a few coloured lights behind me. And in this video, we're going to be having a look at this, the Motorola Razr 50, which is the entry-level Motorola flip phone for 2024. Not to be confused with the Motorola 50 Ultra, which is the more top-of-the-line, fancier one that I reviewed in a previous video. I'll put a link up here in the corner. Now, I was really keen to have a play with the flip phones from Motorola. The reason for this is that I think the last flip phone I had was a Motorola Razr, but like the original one from like the 90s. So I was really keen to see what Motorola had done with the concept of a smartphone as a flip phone. Spoiler alert, I really like it, as you would have seen from my previous look at the Ultra. But let's have a look at this entry-level model. I will compare these two a little bit in this video because it's hard not to sort of compare and give you a comparison. But if you want to know details about the Ultra in lots of details, go watch the video. This one retails normally for $16.99. At the moment, it's on sale in Australia for $14.99. And this one, interestingly enough, in terms of the price, so if I click on the buy now thing on Motorola's website here in Australia, it takes me to Optus, and the outright price on Optus is $11.98, so $1,200. But I found it on other places like Kogan and places like for like $900, like just under $1,000. So if you look around, let's say this is somewhere between $1,000 and $1,200. So either $300 or possibly $500 cheaper than the top of the line one. Let's get into the specs and see what you're getting for that money. It comes in three colors. This is what they call sand beach. I would call it beige. Then you have koala gray. I'm not sure how koalas would feel about being called gray, but I haven't asked one yet. Then you have spritz orange. I really wish they'd send me the orange one. I really like the look of the orange one. The processor is a MediaTek Dimensity 7300K. I've got no idea what that means because I'm not a regular Android user, but in terms of use, it's just fine. I've never noticed anything that I've done on this phone that was slow or not sort of fast enough. It's got 8 gigs of RAM for, RAM stuff. It's got 256 gigs of internal storage. Unfortunately, that is not expandable. Now, I think 256 is probably fine for most people. To give you an idea in terms of use cases, I use, I do a lot of photos and videos and stuff like that with my phone. So I've got the 1 terabyte and I'm always running out of space. But my wife, who's more of sort of like an everyday user, she only uses about 150, 160 gigs on her hard drive on her phone. So I think 250 for most people, absolutely fine. It's got a fingerprint scanner on the outside as the sleep and wake button, which is nice. And it works, both sort of when it's upside down and when it's open to the full screen. So you get that fingerprint scanner working regardless. It's got 15-watt charging wirelessly on the back, and I'll get to the back in a moment. It does 30-watt turbocharge for like fast charging. I haven't found charging it to be slow or fast. It's sort of somewhere in the middle. It's got a 42 milliamp battery, which is actually a little bit bigger, I think, than the top of the line one. But again, in terms of battery use case, I find the battery lasts me about a day and a half of sort of general use. On the back, I really like this sort of, it's faux leather, vegan leather. It's it's sort of like plastic, but it feels leathery. I really like this tactile feel to it because it's not smooth like the glass backs of some other phones. So it's really grabby and it's not going to sort of slip and slide out of your hands. On the inside, it has a 6.9 OLED screen with 120 hertz refresh rate. Now, what that refresh rate means is basically when you're inside photos and things like that, and you're flipping through your photos and you're going through your screens really quick, it doesn't sort of lag, it doesn't sort of jag or anything like that. I haven't found that to be an issue at all. A really clever thing, it does have a 3.6 OLED screen on the outside. Now that's interesting. The reason why I mention that is the screen on the outside of the Ultra is a 4-inch one. You can see there that what they've done is you lose the screen on the top, whereas on the Ultra you've got the screen sort of that goes all the way across. Look, it would have been nice to have a 4-inch screen on here, but I haven't found that to be any sort of major issue with that. In terms of cameras, you've got a 50 megapixel main camera, and then you've got a 13 megapixel ultra wide. I would have liked a few more megapixels on the ultra wide, but quite frankly, for most people, anything over 12 megapixels is absolutely fine, and 50 megapixels is almost sort of like a little bit of overkill, but we'll get to the cameras in more details later. It's running Android 14 with a little bit of sort of Motorola sort of bits and bobs on top of it. The things that I really like in terms of the bits and bobs that it adds, so for example, if you shake the phone, it'll turn the flashlight on, which is nice. A thing that I really love, a feature that I absolutely adore, is when you wiggle the phone, it'll turn the camera on by default. Now with this, it's actually asked me which camera I want to use because I've got multiple camera apps. But once I select a camera once, it'll say, do you want to use that, you know, sort of forever and ever? And there we go. I'll get into the camera in a little bit because there's a lot to like about the camera. But the thing that I want to mention with the wiggle thing is I find that wiggle function really, really useful. And here's why. I go for a walk every morning, and when I'm on my walk, I like to take sort of random photos because, you know, something might happen that is happening sort of near me, and I want to take a quick photo of it. And I'm an iPhone user. Now with an iPhone, you can set it up to tap 3 times on the back, it'll activate the camera. It's got the action button, it's got the you know, control button now, the camera control button. It's not called a button. It really annoys me that they don't call it a button, camera control. So you can get your camera quicker, but when I'm taking my phone out of my pocket, I've got to push a button to make something happen. Whereas with this, I can take my phone out of my pocket, and as I'm taking my phone out of my pocket, I just wiggle it, and on comes the camera. So I really like the fact that you can really quickly get to the camera. So if something's happening and you want to take a photo really quickly, that wiggle function, I really, really like that about the camera. Now let's get into the actual foldy bits of the phone. So a thing that I really like about, and I think the big selling point of a flip phone like this, is the fact that when it's folded like this, it's nice and small. It's very easy to use with one hand. So you've got it in your pocket, you pull out of your pocket, you've got it there, and you've got loads of functions on this outside screen that make it quite usable. And I really like how it's usable by one hand. So it's very easy to just sort of use your thumb to flick from one page to the other. And you can see there are quite a few things on these pages. So this is sort of like your sort of home page. You've got your camera, your text messages, your photos, and I can just bring up my photos like that and flick through my photos really easily. And now I've got, you know, hobbit hands, really small hands, so it's harder for me to get across to the, you know, close button, but I can do it, and if I need to, I can use my second hand. And you'll notice there that it actually uses the entire screen, and it sort of covers the camera bumps there. If you don't like that, you can tap on this button down here, and you can say, right, well, I want to go to default view, and now it gives you a black bar across the camera switch, and you've just using the sort of like the big screen, and then you've got these little shortcuts like your notifications and your sort of like your quick menus. You can go out, and at any time you can go back to full screen if you prefer full screen. You've then also got these other tabs you can flick across, and you can see that there's quite a few apps that I've added here that I can use just as, you know, big apps that I can use on the screen here. So for example, I could just go into Waze, and the first time you use it, it will ask you if you want to allow it to be used on this external screen. I go, yes, please, allow, and on comes Waze, and there you go. You can just use the app as you normally would. Some things on the small screen aren't great. So for example, if I open up my text messages, you can see that, you know, it's okay to go into the text messages, but when I bring up the keyboard, I can absolutely use it, but I can see what I'm typing, but then to see what someone else has responded, to see the text that I'm dealing with, not as easy. But if you want to quickly sort of pop this up and type a quick response to someone, it's absolutely doable. To add another app to the app screen, you just tap on this little pencil in the top right hand corner, and you can see that you've got all these different apps that you can then add to the screen. It pretty much looks at all the apps that you've got on the phone. Some apps will work better, but you know, they're all there, they're all totally usable. And so I can go Google, yep, tap on that, tap done, and now Google is in the list of apps that are available here. You've then got your calendar, so you can see I've got a very, very busy day ahead. You've then got your weather widget, so you can have a widget there. You can have a dial thing, so you can call from here. You've then got a whole bunch of little games, and these games are kind of cool. Like I particularly like, you know, the Marble Mayhem, like Easy, and so you can actually use the accelerometer to try and get your marble to fall into. And I'm just going to do this over here. And I'll show you what it looks like in a moment. And we want the marble to fall into the camera bump, which is, yeah, I like the playfulness of it. So that's kind of cool. And then you've also got a dedicated Spotify sort of app widget, whatever you want to call it. And then you can add a whole bunch of different widgets as well. So if an app doesn't necessarily support this external screen, you can add it as a sort of widget. But let me show you some camera stuff that I really like on here. So if I tap on camera and bring up my camera, you can see that a really nice feature is that you can actually use, don't forget, you can also open the camera by twisting. Yeah, I just told you that. You don't have to tell me that. Capture photos or videos, tap anywhere on the screen. Yep, cool. You can also capture by tap. Yep, cool. So something that I really like about this is the fact that this is accessing the main cameras, but I can preview what's on here. So very often, I mean, like this camera does have a little internal sort of selfie camera, but quite frankly, the selfie camera normally doesn't have as good autofocus. It doesn't have as good sort of whatever sort of that you've got on the big outside cameras. And the fact that you've got the big outside cameras and you can preview what you're seeing, and you can do the usual sort of Android stuff. So I can hold up my hand, it'll do a little bit of a countdown, take a photo. You can tap the screen to take a photo. One thing to be aware of when you're tapping the screen, very often though, if I'm tapping the screen, my finger will cover the camera a little bit, and that's less than ideal, but it's just something to be aware of. You've then got camera controls, so you can come in here and you can pick, if you've got different sort of moods and things, you can go for filters. I'm not much of a filter person myself, but you can do a whole bunch of filters if you like. You can tap on photo, and there you've got your other options here, so you can switch to portrait, mirror, photo booth, slow motion, and again, you can just go into video like that. You can start recording video. You can access the zoom, sort of, the ultra wide. Having this set up on here like this, I think is a really, really great feature. The other nice thing is that when you unfold the camera, and if you're taking a photo of someone, they can actually see what you're taking a photo of. Or if you were taking a video of someone, they can actually see the video that you're taking. So being able to preview what you're taking with this on the outside screen, I think is a really, really great feature. So that is a huge selling point for me of the foldiness of the phone. Last thing I want to show you with the external screen is if you want to make adjustments to how the external screen works, just hold down your finger on there, and then it comes up with your manage panel. So you can change stuff on the lock screen, you can change stuff on the home screen, and then you can also manage panels. So this is where you can add or remove different panels. And if you want to actually edit stuff on here, so for example, if you want to change the way things work, you can just tap on there, and then you've got loads of different looks and feels. You can have different themes, you can change the font, all that kind of stuff. So really nice in terms of, there's a lot of customizability of this. So now let's have a look at how this works sort of when you unfold it and it's actually a big screen. Now, Motorola has said that they've made it a lot easier to open it up with a single hand. As you can see that I can do it, but again, with my little hobbit hands, it's not the easiest thing in the world, but it's totally doable. I do love, and I mentioned this in my other Razr video, I do love being able to close the phone like that. There's something just so satisfying being able to do that. I think it harks back, and I'm going to repeat the joke because if you haven't seen that video, you haven't heard the joke. I think it harks back to the days of when you could slam the phone. So if you're talking to someone, you go, well, I really disagree with you. It's for that alone, I like this phone. So let's have a look at it when you unfold the phone and look at it sort of as au naturel in its sort of big screen mode. Now, the really thing I like about this is it's a really big screen because being folded, it's small. Being big, it can be bigger. To give you an idea, this is my iPhone 16 Pro right next to it, and you can see the screen is significantly larger. Also, it's quite thinner. Now, my 16 Pro is in a case, but even without the case, it's really nice and thin. I'm not going to say disadvantage, but something that's noticeable is obviously there is a hinge. And you can see that if I move the phone into a certain light, you can see the hinge, but I do have to move it into a certain light to see it. So normal everyday stuff when using it, I haven't noticed that I've noticed the hinge. And then you do sort of feel it if you slide your finger over the hinge, but most of the time, if you think about it, when I'm scrolling, my thumb's on the bottom half of the phone, and so I don't really move my finger to scroll over that hinge very often. And even if I do, I notice it, but it's not really an issue. A thing that I really like, and this is sort of a bit with the foldy thing again, is that when you're watching a video, and you can see here in terms of videos, screen's nice and clear, nice and crisp. I might actually play a different video so you can see something that's a bit brighter. So let me bring up my YouTube, and I've got a video. So every year for my wife, I make a music video for her. So this is the music video that Archie and I made for my wife this year. You can see we had a bit of fun with it. So nice and crisp, clear screen. So when you're watching video, nice, crisp and clear. HDR10 plus on the external screen, HDR10, not HDR10 plus on the external screen, but nice and sharp. Seeing it outside, it's not the brightest screen I've ever seen, but it's totally usable on the outside. When you zoom in, you do lose a little bit on the top and the bottom, or you have the bars on the outside. But here's a nice feature, is that when you fold the screen, your video will continue playing on the outside. And I mean, it's a better experience to watch on the outside, but you might want to, you know, sort of have this open like this. Again, just if you're sort of zipping in and out. So I really like the idea of just jumping in and doing quick things on the external screen, as opposed to opening it up fully and doing stuff on the internal screen and doing sort of like, you know, like the bigger stuff, if you would. So I really like the integration between the big screen and the small screen. In terms of gaming, it's okay. It's not going to sort of set any world records, but you can see here in terms of refresh rates and stuff, getting up and playing games, it works perfectly fine. I'm not a huge gamer, but I think if you are a gamer, you probably want to get something a little bit gruntier. But if you're doing sort of just basic games, I think this is going to work just fine for you. A cool feature that I want to show you about the bendiness of this is that you can bend it and sort of, it'll hold its position at 90 degrees. And I think it'll hold its position, yeah, at a couple of other degrees. Where this is handy is, so for example, if I was watching a YouTube video, I could fold the screen like this and it actually adjusts the menu. So it shows you the video there on the top and it gives you your controls on the bottom. So it's actually quite clever in terms of knowing when it's folded and how it's folded, and sort of giving you, you know, the UI adapts to adjust to let you use the controls in a very clever way of using the top and the bottom. Same thing works is that when you're in the camera app, let me just close that YouTube video. So again, if I'm in the camera app, it'll give me the preview on the top, but it'll give me my menus here on the bottom. So I like how they've thought about how you might use it. And that YouTube example is actually quite handy, because if you're putting it down on a table, you just lay it down on a table like that. And instead of looking at it flat on the table and you've got to find something to sort of prop it up, you can have the smaller screen, but you can view it at multiple different angles while you're watching it. So I do like the way that they've done that. Another clever little thing that it does, and I'm not sure if this is just an Android thing or if this is a Motorola specific thing, and you can see the Motorola specific stuff because there's a Moto folder in here, and you can tap on the Moto app, and this will take you through some of the sort of personalized extra things that Motorola does specifically for. And you can see, for example, there's, you know, some of the gestures and things that it does there, so you can find out all the stuff if you're not aware of it in the Moto app. But something I really like is that you can have two apps open up at the same time. So for example, if I open up my calendar app and then I slide my finger from side to side, there we go, it opens up and says, what other app would you like open at the same time? So I can go, right, well, let's do the YouTube app. So I can have YouTube down there on the bottom while I'm checking stuff up on my calendar on the top, and I can be watching that video. I'd probably do it the other way around and have, you know, my calendar on the bottom and the YouTube video on the top. But that's kind of cool how, I mean, I don't know how often I would use this feature, but it's kind of cool how you can sort of multitask on a phone. That's pretty wild, isn't it? Last thing I want to talk about is the photos and the camera. So the camera, I think, as I said before, not class leading, but I think the 50 megapixel main camera is pretty darn good, and it'll let you do pretty much everything you need to do. Having the ultra wide, I like. It's interesting that, you know, on the entry-level model, they've got the 50 megapixel standard and the 13 megapixel ultra wide. And then on the ultra, which is like the top of the line one, they've got the same 50 megapixel, as far as I can tell, main camera, but then they've got a 50 megapixel telephoto. I guess they had to make a choice, and I suppose it's up to you to decide whether the choice of having the ultra wide or having the telephoto, which is better for your use case in terms of taking photos and videos. One other little difference is when it comes to video, the ultra, which is again top of the line one, will let you do 4K 60 frames per second. The 50 will let you do 4K 30 frames per second. So if you want to do high frame rates, you can make it slow motion later. You do need to shoot either in HD or full HD. I think full HD will let you do 120, and the HD, which is 720, I think it'll let you do 240. I'll just put something down here if I'm wrong. If I'm right, I won't put something down there. So is there something there? Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Who knows? It's a mystery. In terms of the quality of the photos that you capture with it, I think you get pretty good photos. So you can see here that I took quite a lot of photos with the camera, a few videos sort of testing. With all Android phones, I always say this, I find that they sort of have a bit more contrast than what I'm used to on iPhone, but it's very easy to sort of fix that in post. I think you'd be very happy with the kind of photos and videos that you can get out of the Motorola Razr 50. So what are my final thoughts of the Motorola Razr 50? I think, particularly for the price, like if you can find it around the $1,000 mark, I think it's a really, really good phone. Overall, whether it's this one or the 50 Ultra, I really like what Motorola has done with the concept of a smartphone as a flip phone. So I think it works really well. The functionality is great. Is it perfect? No, there's no such thing as a perfect thing. But I think if you're looking for relatively affordable, I mean, $1,000 isn't affordable, but then again, what is affordable these days? If you are looking for it and you can get it for about $1,000, I think it's definitely worth looking into. If it was only available at $1,200, and if you had the extra few $100s, it might then be worth looking at the Motorola, Razr 50 Ultra, because that's, for that extra money, you are getting sort of more bang for your buck, but for, almost a third less, I think the 50, just on its own, is well worth looking into. I hope this video was helpful. I hope it was useful. If you have found this video helpful or useful, please like and subscribe. If you've already subscribed, thank you so much for your support, and we'll catch you in the next one. Do whatever you want within your pocket, and then don't say that. Auto rotate screen. Yep, turn that on. Why would that not be on by default? I mean, I guess you got to choose one or the other, but that really should be, automatically set. Fold a phone from Motorola. Flip phone. Flip phones. It's a flip phone. The fold ones fold. The flip ones flip. Get it right. I'm easily confused. Okay, the cameras that you have, you've got a 50 megapixel main camera and a 32 megapixel ultra wide. No, that's not right. It's a 13 megapixel ultra wide. Let me just double check that. Yes, apologies. It is. No, just do that. Green. So for example, if I'm. Oh no, it's got it. Yep. Let's just stop that again. Really like it as no. I keep saying I really like. I need a bloody thesaurus is what I need. Now I have to watch that back and see if it was actually usable, doable, happening.